Good morning, Galaxians, and welcome back to the Bat Cave. Nothing specific planned for today. I do have some good news, bad news story for you. The bad news is I had told all of you that I was going to be attending the Etsy fireside chat today on trust and safety. I actually am not going to be able to do that. That's the bad news. The good news is because I've got another warehouse buyout offer, and I will be as soon as we leave here later this morning, I will be on my way back to Dayton to look at a warehouse. And I also just received a text from someone else that just sent me pictures of a massive collection that looks to be well over 2,000 books that's interested in selling. So I got quite a bit of stuff potentially going on. So I will not be attending the Etsy trust and safety thing. Hopefully they will publish a recap of that, and I can bring that to you in the next main episode. But I completely forgot that was going on today when I arranged to do this. But the business comes first. We got to go in and we got to get these books when the getting's good. So I will be traveling to Dayton. Lord Jake Ryan, good morning. Thank you for stopping out. Chuck Witt, always a pleasure to see you. Thank you, sir. JRKR 1964, it's been a while. Welcome. Good to see you. And Mary McQuain is here. If you've got anything specific you'd like to talk about, let me know in the chat. I did put up an extra video this week. I'm going to try to do a little bit more kind of not just news oriented episodes. I did a 10 reasons why I think you should consider selling on eBay. There were some comments and some suggestions on that, so I've got some other ideas for some content I'm going to probably try to bring over the next month or so. So keep an eye out for that. And if you have anything in particular that you'd be interested in hearing me riff on, let me know either in the chat or if you're on Team Replay in the comments. I would appreciate it. Media Picker Brandon, good morning. Almost had my first Mercari sale in over 3 months, but the payment failed. It's weird how often that happens. And it seems to happen to me a lot on offers. People will send me an offer, we'll go back and forth, maybe finally land on a price, poof, payment fails. It's weird. It's been back to normal over there for me. I've had one sale in the last week, 2 books. The guy made me an offer originally that would have been less than the cost to ship them. I messaged him back and explained that, and we agreed on a price. So I did get those out yesterday. But let me know in the chat, how was your holiday weekend in terms of business, and did you do anything fun? I took the weekend pretty much off. I did record a video, but I didn't do any work. I didn't do any listing. I didn't take any pictures. I answered a few questions, sent out a few offers, but I really didn't do much work. So that was really nice to get some time to just kind of chill out. And I had what was arguably, I think, my biggest holiday weekend ever in terms of transactions. I had 45 items sold over 44 orders. One was a kind of 2-in-1. So it was super busy over the weekend. Had a lot of stuff going out. Tamara Lynn, good morning. Not sure that's a name I've seen before, so welcome. Thanks for coming by. Big Dre, thank you. I appreciate that. That was quite a surprise to get that message from them and see that for whatever reason they thought that highly of the podcast. That's pretty good company, actually, to be in with the guys over at Pure Hustle Podcast, because they've been doing it for a long time. So that was very cool. There's a quick hello. Media Picker, I really need to put some time into it and list some CDs that I think will do well over there. Have you found, is there a particular niche or genre that seems to do better on Mercari than others? I haven't listed any CDs in so long that I'm kind of out of the loop on that. Mostly everything I'm putting over there has been books. eBay has been very slow the last week. The week leading into the Memorial Day weekend last week was not particularly strong for me. But like I said, the weekend itself was crazy busy. Very surprising. Miss Lachey, welcome. Good morning. Nobody. Is it worth selling on Etsy? Is it the same as selling on eBay? That's a good question. Obviously, it depends on what you sell, because Etsy is much more restrictive in terms of they want it to be either handmade or it's got to be legitimately vintage, or you have to have like a production partner. So they're a little more constrained in what they will allow you to sell there. It is not as big an audience as eBay. It's a much, much smaller buyer volume. They do tend to spend more money. My average ticket on Etsy is significantly higher than it is over on eBay. But again, I can't really sell everything over there, so it's hard to compare. Etsy is about 15% of my business in total in terms of dollar volume, probably a little bit less than that in terms of transactions. eBay is 80%, and I think most people that are selling on both would give you kind of roughly similar numbers. eBay, like I talked about in the video that I dropped on Tuesday, is, other than Amazon, probably is the 800-pound gorilla. It is where you're going to get your most volume. But Etsy is a nice, for me, it's been a terrific secondary option. Again, 15% of my business, that is business that I absolutely would not be getting um, if I wasn't over there. So it's definitely been worth doing for me, but you've got to have the right stuff. And it's got to obviously fit with the clientele over there as well. If anybody else has thoughts on that, leave them in the chat. Media Picker had a really solid holiday weekend, some big sales. Tamara Lynn said sales are steady when I cross post. It's one of the things we talk about on this show all the time, trying to get your items to as many places that make sense. I know a lot of sellers have kind of walked away from sites like Mercari, for instance, because the traffic just isn't there, the volume's not there. It's free to list. I use List Perfectly, so it's fairly easy to cross list. So I go ahead and do it. If I was having to do that manually, I absolutely wouldn't. For 15 or 20 sales a month tops on Mercari, it would not be worth the time if it was a lot of work to do. But getting your items in front of as many relevant potential buyers, and that goes back to the Etsy thing, probably makes good sense. If you're selling vintage, antique, old books or whatever, like I am, Etsy is a great opportunity. It's one not a lot of people probably think of, but it's represented a pretty significant amount of money for me. Black Cat Flips, good morning. Brandon says a lot of the CDs I've sold on Mercari have either been pop CDs, lots, certain artists, Taylor Swift, metal CDs seem to do okay over there. I did really well with kind of old vintage black and death metal. Part of that big lot I bought, whatever it's been now, 3 or 4 summers ago, there were several boxes of like late 80s through early 2000s, like Norwegian black metal and that kind of stuff. And those all brought really, really good money and sold really, really quickly. I had somebody reach out to me last week asking if I bought CDs, and I told them I would only be interested if it was old metal or old punk, and they said no, it was all mostly country. So I passed on that. I've got enough to do right now. I would probably do metal or punk just because I know they'll sell and bring good money. But yeah, I ended up passing on that lot. Miss Lachey, I've sold CD lots of 10 to 12 on Mercari, rock, country, R&B. What kind of prices are you getting, if you don't mind my asking, for a lot of 10 to 12 CDs? I've had a couple of lots, again, from that big buy. I was doing kind of mixed lots of 30 that I was offering for like $15 or $18 plus shipping, just because I was into those CDs so cheap, and it was just actual kind of extra inventory stuff that I wasn't going to list otherwise. And I've sold all but 2 or 3 of those. So it's been pretty good. But I'm curious because I've seen a lot of YouTube videos about the resurgence of CDs all of a sudden. So I'm always curious, is the price moving? My older inventory, I've got a lot of CDs still from when I listed all that stuff, and I'm selling now 5, 6 a week. We've had a couple recently in some of the what sold recaps in the main episode. So I've started to notice some uptick as well, even on really old inventory. So that market definitely seems to be moving. Black Cap was good going into the weekend, but dropped Sunday and Monday. See, mine was exactly the opposite. It's so weird how that works. I did very, very little through last week, and then the weekend was just popping. Sunday afternoon, I was trying to watch the Indy 500, and my phone literally was going off every few minutes. It was absolutely crazy. Ryan Dreyer, good morning. Listening while at the regular gig. Thank you. I appreciate you stopping by. Francisco, welcome. Greetings from California. Good to see you. Papa Sticks Treasures, welcome. Hello. Sue Aaronhold, good morning. Thank you for coming out. Primo Chemo, good morning. I have a question. Going through a giant, thousands of Westwood One syndicated show CDs that have some nice sales prices. Any Vero or other copyright exposure on this? I have never come across in the literally thousands of CDs I've sold, even promo stuff, any kind of pushback or copyright claims or Vero. Brandon, you've been selling a lot more CDs than I have. If you want to chime in on that, I never have had any issues. I'm trying to think. There was a radio series from the late 80s that I had a really big collection of from that lot, listed with the station's call letters and the whole 9 yards, and sold them without issue. So my gut instinct is you're not going to run into any problems with those. And those I would think would be really good sellers. Hollywood Reseller, good morning. Have you noticed more of your items sell on Mercari that you cross-listed than those that you listed on Mercari in the past? No, it's like the 2 books that I just mentioned that I sold, they have been listed for months. So there's something that I cross-listed in kind of the normal flow of my business, but probably 3 or 4 months ago. I still sell really old stuff over there, so it's there's no real pattern to it. I don't know how they handle search. I don't know if a listing gets old, if they kind of restrict it in the search or bury it. I don't know what their process is. I know you hear rumors that eBay will hide older listings, which is one of the reasons I run a lot of that old stuff on sale every month, to try to give it some boost in eBay's algorithm, where they may look at that listing and say, gosh, he's had this listed for 2,000 days. We're not going to show this particular listing, but now it's 30, 40, 50% off, and it becomes maybe a more attractive listing to their algorithm. I don't have any proof of that, but I sell stuff like that all the time that is really, really old. So it pays to like try to tweak the algorithm there, but I don't know if that's true on Mercari. Another hello there. Black Cat Flip says does well on Etsy when stuff gets cross-listed. Mountain Bee 23, hello, welcome from Boulder, Colorado. Adrienne Anderson, hey, from Texas. Congrats on the podcast reward. Thank you. I appreciate it. I did. I was pretty excited about that, to be fair. I posted they sent me a graphic and the whole 9 yards, and I did put it up. For me, in addition to all of you coming out, regularly here to the live and watching the main shows, and, sending in questions by email or reaching out on Instagram, that's a lot of validation that I'm kind of doing things right, that y'all appreciate. But having a completely disinterested third party also validate it was really nice to see. And hopefully it will help the show continue to grow. Black Cat Flips asks if you were part of the big sale on eBay. That is actually next month. That runs June 2nd through the 8th. I am participating in that. I've already got a note in my planner to not send offers during that time, because I don't want to have people double dipping. I want to see what that sale does completely on its own. So I will not be running my normal monthly clearance sale. I'm not going to be doing offers. I'm not going to do anything for that window from the 2nd to the 8th. I'm just going to allow the eBay 15% off promotion to run by itself, and then compare that to kind of the same week last year and how business has been over the last few months, and see if participating in that program, A, gave me a lift over my normal sales volume, and B, maybe more importantly, gave me enough of a lift to pay for the 15% bill that I'm going to get in a month. So I will definitely keep you posted and come back to you on what that looks like. Not sure what that's in refer to. Miss Lachey says usually shoot for 2 to 250 per CD for standard CDs. That's a pretty good number. And again, if you, especially if you can buy them cheaply enough, that's a number that makes sense. Media Picker Brandon says never had a Vero on a CD sold on eBay. I did have one removed as eBay thought it was counterfeit. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever had a listing removed by eBay for counterfeit or anything like that. I just haven't run into that issue. That's really interesting. What was the CD? I'm just curious. I I have tried part of the collection that I had. There were some, let's say, bootleg CDs in there, some things, some live shows that people had ripped off the internet and burned a CD and then sold them to this store. And I did not sell most of those. I discarded those, sold them to a guy actually who runs a flea market booth locally because I wasn't interested in risking my account for those. But thank you, Mary. I appreciate that very much. Again, if you have anything that you'd like to add, please do so in the chat. In the meantime, I've got my usual stack of stuff here to look at. So let's do a listing here and see if I've got anything. These are part of two big recent purchases that I did. The boxes have all kind of become commingled, so I don't know specifically which lot these are from. This is an interesting one. This is a postcard album. What is this? Beechcraft postcard album. No date on it. Looks like probably 1950s era, maybe. And it is legitimately, it's just blank pages where you would insert postcards, kind of maybe like a fake leather kind of vinyl deal. Let's see if my phone will stay on. Well, it would help if I could type. Let's see what we got here. So yeah, that's not bad. Here's one that looks essentially like mine. It's $28.95 free shipping. Here's a blue one, $21.71, also with free shipping. So I'll probably use that kind of as my reference point. This one here that's 15 bucks. That's probably about where I'll go, like $14.99 on this. We'll just use that one to start. I like that title. So we'll sell one like this. Very cool. This is not something that should ship by media mail. I suppose you could probably sneak it through if you wanted to, but it's not really educational material. It's not a book per se. This is more of a binder. So this will go ground advantage. There probably are sellers who would ship this media mail. Neat piece. I've got literally thousands of postcards that I haven't done anything with. You may recall, if you've been here for a while, I was doing a show there for a bit where I was doing like readings of postcards, and I picked up a cheap lot of postcards for that show, which I'm no longer doing. And I've got those to figure out what to do with. So let's see, Beechcraft postcard album. Brown, refillable, empty, vintage 1950s. That sounds right. It's even in the right category. I'm going to call this used. It's never been used. It's clearly, there's no postcards in it. There's no evidence that there ever were any postcards in it, but it's got some like tanning around the edges. It's got a little bit of wear on the cover. So while it's not used, it's certainly not new. So I'm not going to try to pull that off. I say This holds 168, so mine is actually a little bigger than the one I selected, so that's good. I don't know exactly what year this was done, so I'm going to leave that blank. I'm not going to measure this, so I'm just going to take those out. Is that what I'm doing? Yep. So I put my custom SKU in so I know where to find this if and when it sells. Paste that in there. This is in good shape. It does have light tanning on the page edges. This is going to ship with ground advantage. I am going to do, I'm not trying to collect this. Let's do $14.99 and 12. Probably 1 pound and 5 ounces with a little cardboard with it. It's going to be 16 by 12 by 1. Need to change my shipping policy. And that one is done. I'm never going to hit my goal for today for listing. I set it for 20 coming into the day, and that's not probably going to happen with this extra trip going on. So let's get back here into the chat. Primo, you're welcome. Hopefully that's helpful. Yeah, I would list away on CDs. Again, that's not an area I've ever seen an issue. Media Picker says it was a cassette tape that eBay thought was counterfeit. Japanese import of a Men at Work cassette. Import stuff can be a bit tough. Big Dre says 0 sales yesterday and today. Got an offer on Posh that they canceled before I could accept, and a lowball offer on eBay today that I countered with no result. Yeah, I've had, I think, 2 sales today so far, and I did have someone reach out. Interestingly, I've got 2 old books from, I want to say maybe the 1930s. It's a 2-volume set of illustrated anatomy books, and I decided to list them individually, volumes 1 and 2, because it looked like I might squeeze a little bit more money out of them. I got a watcher, so I sent out my normal offer, and he reached out overnight. He's in Australia and wanted to know what combined shipping would be. Of course, on offers, particularly international ones, eBay doesn't do that. So I cooked up a little custom listing with the 2 books combined, so the weight was correct, priced it at the price of the offer I had sent out, and then sent him a message back saying, hey, I don't have any idea what it's going to cost to ship to Australia, because eBay does that with the international shipping program, and we really don't get any visibility into what that price is going to be. There could be duties or import taxes, or I don't know what all that goes into it. eBay handles all that, of course, on our behalf. So I just created one new listing that he can go look at. He can add it to his cart, and then eBay should show him the correct total, including shipping for both of those. So we'll see if I hear back from him. That would be a pretty nice sale. Those are $34-ish a piece. So it'll be $64 plus shipping. That would be cool. But yeah, it's not been great so far today. Hollywood Reseller, any plans on growing your store to a much greater number in active listings? If you were here at the very beginning, I'm going actually to source at an estate seller's warehouse this afternoon. I'm also probably going to go look at a private collection, which looks like it's probably 2,000 books. It's frankly more than I want to bite off at this time, but you got to strike while the iron is hot. So I'm going to go look at that as well. I've probably got 1,000 or 1,500 books currently in my garage that I'm working my way through from a couple of other recent buys. So I am always buying and adding new listings. I've talked about previously, I'm kind of at a point where I'm at an equilibrium. I'm listing 100 to 140 or 150 new listings a week. And that's about what I'm selling every week, unless it's a slow week. Like last week, it was only 83, I think. But I've kind of reached that point where over the course of a year, the size of my store might grow by 1,000 or 1,200 listings, but I've reached a pretty nice balance where I'm listing about as much as I physically want to spend the time listing, and I'm selling real close to that amount. So I've been at the kind of low 11,000 listing range for, gosh, most of this year. With the holiday weekend, it dipped below 11,300 for the first time in a couple of weeks. Now, hopefully, over the course of this week, I'll move it back up in there, but that's kind of the range. And I try to just have that, kind of happy medium where I'm selling as much as I'm listing. That's a good workflow for me. So there will be some growth just organically because I am listing a few more than I sell, but I'm not purposely trying to get to 15,000 or 20,000 listings. I've kind of hit a place where my stress level is perfect in terms of what I'm trying to get done, and the success that the business is having on as a result of that. Maybe you can use unused for new postcard with defects. Yeah, I could have probably in the description said that it appears to be, in terms of the product specifics, they don't even give you that option in that category. It's either new or used. I know some categories have a whole range of things from new to new open box to refurbished or whatever. In that particular, in the postcard category, it's new or used. So maybe I could have got away with new, and then in the description explained that it does have some issues. My personal rule of thumb is always kind of under promise, over deliver. I'd rather call it used and have somebody get it and then leave feedback that says, my gosh, this thing was practically new, than list it as new and have somebody leave feedback that says, I got this and there's tanning on the edges and whatever. So that's just my rule of thumb. I tend to err on the side of caution. I'm a very conservative grader. A book that most people would consider good, I will usually call acceptable, just for that reason. It helps set a customer expectation. And then if the book is better than that expectation, it leads to a positive outcome for everybody involved. They got something better than they thought they were getting. They'll generally leave feedback that says that. If you go to my store and go through the feedback, you'll see that pop up fairly regularly, that the book was better than they had expected based even on the photos. So that is a philosophy that has always worked for me. Big Dre, one unpaid item on eBay. That's interesting because eBay has really tried to fix that problem. Was it an auction by chance? Because I know they just made that change back in this earlier in the spring with auctions where they're allowing now auction bidders, buyers to have up to 7 days to pay in case they want to bid on any more of your auctions. Trail chapters, do you have an average number that you like to list each day? So I'll just give you, I don't know how well they'll show up on camera here, but this is my current cheat sheet. So you can see I've kind of planned for a week. Like last week, for instance, I wanted to do 140, and then I broke that out per day. Monday was 25, Tuesday was 30, and so on. This week, I didn't do anything Monday. Notice the big X there. Took the day off. Yay me. I only planned to do 15 yesterday because I knew it was going to be a big shipping day with the holiday, and that worked out perfectly. It took me almost all morning to go to the warehouse and pull 45 items, then get back here, pack them, ship them, go through all the rigmarole of printing the labels and doing the accounting and whatever. So 15 was a perfect number. Today, my plan was 20. I'm not going to probably get there between doing this show and then in the afternoon. I would normally do 10, 15 listings. I'm going to be traveling, so I probably won't get there. So I'll have to make that up later in the week. But I usually have a number in mind for the week, and then I look at each individual day. Am I doing a live show? Do I want to record a video? Am I maybe doing a show on Whatnot, which I'm not currently doing? Am I going outsourcing? Do I have a family obligation? Is there something else that's going to prevent me from getting, 25 or 30 that day? And then I'll just take that number, whether it's 100 or 140 or whatever it is that I want to do during the week, and spread that out through those days. So I'm a big believer in these planners and writing down those goals. But I start with kind of a weekly number in mind and then back into my days, depending on what else is going on. Accepted an offer, but no payment yet. There is a setting in eBay where you can mandate that the buyer has to have a payment method on file before they can make you an offer. You might look into that and see if you've got that turned on, because if not, and they don't, they can wait. I think it's up to 4 days to pay. But I turned that on, and I only now get offers from people who have a payment method on file. And over the last kind of 2 weeks, the payment is almost instantaneous. Like, I will accept an offer, and within 30 seconds, I've got the notification from eBay that the item is sold and paid for. The only exception to that is international orders. International offers seem to be handled slightly differently, and there is a pretty big gap there, oftentimes up to the 3 or 4 days before the thing gets paid for. But you might look for that setting. I don't remember exactly where it is, but there is a setting where you can turn that on. So they've got to have a payment method on file to actually make an offer. Mountain B, good morning. Accept an offer from an international buyer. It languished unpaid for a week before I just canceled it. Yeah, the international offer thing, they still need to work on. And we've talked about it before here. I feel like they really need to try to figure out maybe not internationally, but certainly domestically, people make multiple offers. Like, if you've got a series of books, like the one I did a couple of weeks ago, where the guy bought, 7 or 8 books all from the same series, and I had sent him offers, and of course eBay processed every single offer individually. So now I got to go in and I got to calculate what his combined shipping is on all those and give him a refund. And because the books were fairly inexpensive, I had to give him a refund over multiple orders to account for how much savings there was in the shipping. They really need to sort out a way that offers can be made from either party, and then those offers can be combined into one order for combined shipping. I'm not a computer programmer. I don't know how involved that would be to do, but my gosh, it is a mess. Den Decor, better late than never. Absolutely. Rapidly approaching the halfway point of the year. Wondering how you're feeling about 2025 so far. It's funny that you say that. I finished up my orders and my accounting this morning, and I just ran a really quick P&L in my software just to kind of see where I'm at year to date. And I am down about 2% year to date in sales, and I'm down about 4% in net profit. And that is almost all attributed to higher fees and higher shipping costs. I have spent slightly more on supplies and on rent this year because I rented a second space last fall. So that's added a little bit to my rent as compared to last spring. But most of it is shipping and fees. And those things continue to go up. As we talked about, shipping is going up again in July if you use the United States Postal Service. So I've talked about previously, like, the value of your item. If you've got a $25 book, it's a $25 book. And as the price of shipping and the price of fees goes up, realistically, you can't really add that to the price of your item, because the market price of that book, unless everybody did it, is still $25. So if you say, I'm going to account for the additional fees and the additional shipping, I'm going to make this book now $26. Now maybe you're not competitive, and now you don't sell it at all. It really is a catch-22. It's one of the reasons that I just switched to buyer paid shipping. So at least I'm getting as much as it's going to cost me to ship, minus the extra fees, of course, that eBay gets for that. Because every time the post office raises their prices, eBay gets a fee increase because they charge a fee on the shipping that you collect. So you're almost constantly falling behind I'm finding that estate sellers have been raising their prices a little bit in the category I'm in. And sellers that I used to be able to buy books for a couple of bucks are now 3 and sometimes 4 or more. So all of the costs are going up, but the market value of a lot of these items, if anything, is going down or certainly staying the same. So profitability is not quite what I would hope for this year. I've done more transactions this year than I did last year, and I'm still a little off the boil. So I'm still I'm still pleased with how things are going, but they're not. It, if it continues at the current pace, this will be the first year since I started this in 2019 that I will not have an increase in sales or profit, which is a little disheartening. Ms. Lachey says eBay implemented immediate payment, then immediately implemented ways that circumvent it. Yes. And, they tried to, I talked about it at the time, you may recall, they tried to sell that auction change as beneficial for sellers because the buyer may look at more of your auctions and decide to buy more things. If you only sell by auction, that might be true, but at any given moment, right, for instance, right now in my store, I have 11,200 and some listings. I have 2 auctions. A person is probably not going to buy another auction item from me that I would want to wait 7 days for them to pay because I only got 2 things. So it depends on your business case, but I found that to be super disingenuous by eBay. I just did the whole video about how much I love eBay and why you should be selling there, but let's be real, it ain't perfect. And that's one of the things, they give you something and they try to sell it to you as a seller as it's this great benefit for you, when really it's only a benefit for eBay. I'll get off my soapbox. eBay is still a great place to sell. As I said in that video, 80% of my business, it has literally completely changed my life for the better. But just because something is acceptable or good doesn't mean that you shouldn't push to try to make it better or to make it great. And there's so many opportunities that all of these sites have to be better, to be more accommodating or supportive of sellers, to be more transparent and so on. So while I love eBay and I'm not going to not sell there. I'm also not going to not call out when they do something that I don't happen to agree with. Big Dre says, I'm actually bidding on a couple of auctions right now, currently in the lead. Hopefully they don't go too high by the end of the week as the prices are really good as of now. There you go. Good luck. I hope that works out. I haven't done any buys on eBay of like bulk. I know Brandon Media Picker, I think he does, buys lots like of CDs to resell. But I'm blessed or cursed, I guess, depending on how many books I buy today and tomorrow. I've got enough sellers locally reaching out to me right now that I'm not even going to estate sales at the moment because I've got more inventory than I really know what to do with. But it's a great way to buy inventory if you're not in that position, to look at people that have gotten like big lots of stuff that they're trying to move that they just want to get out of. Miss Lachey says, I have immediate payment, but have had a few non-payers recently. Must have been from eBay trusted buyers. Liz just did a thing again, I think, over the weekend about some other issues that seem to be popping up like that with the quote unquote trusted buyer program, which eBay has not fully admitted to, but seems to be a thing. Or there's a payment that is non-sufficient or expired. Yeah, I did get a message on, I had somebody overseas that made offers on a couple of books and didn't pay for them and asked if I could combine them. And of course, I used the eBay International Shipping Program, so you can't because they have individual reference numbers. I told him that I couldn't, but I went in and looked at those orders, and both of them had said payment problem or something to that effect. There was some kind of issue with the payment that it had not gone through. And the note that was with the listing said specifically, this listing will continue to be available for other buyers until this offer is paid, which subsequently it was not. The guy just decided he wasn't willing to pay that much in shipping to have the 2 items shipped, and eventually the offer just fell away. But Then DeCorsa just did our numbers. We're up 30%, but we also have a third more listings than where we ended the year, keeping less per 56 cents versus last year's 58. Yeah, my gross margins are also a little bit off because I've now kind of anniversaried some of those really big purchases that I did. The 15,000 books that I got for 4 or 5 cents a piece, those 8,000 CDs that I bought for whatever it was, 3.5 cents a piece. You know, those a lot of those books are gone now. So my gross margins have dropped from, at one point they were 97-ish%. I mean, just stratospheric gross margins, down to about 93, which is still ridiculously good. But that is another factor as my costs have gone up and I've sold through a lot of that cheap inventory, that has had an impact on my margins as well. Denticor says that's a direct product of promoting at a higher rate to keep volume up. Got a lot of really interesting feedback so far on the episode that came out Monday, talking about the attribution change that eBay is doing in multiple countries coming up next month, with how they're handling promoted listings, and people kind of hypothesizing how they will handle, if that comes here to the US, or if they're in one of those countries, what they're going to do. A lot of people talking about they will reduce their promoted rate. Some folks said they would stop promoting altogether and just see what happens. It's going to be a really interesting situation to see. Several people commented, the common thing that I hear, if everybody promotes, nobody's promoting, because you've just essentially re-leveled the playing field. My only pushback to that would be, because there's such a range that you can promote, if I'm promoting at 2 or 3% and you're promoting at 5 or 8 or 12 or whatever, I think you can promote up to 100%, which nobody would do, but the sky's the limit. Those people will continue to just push higher and higher in the percentages that they're willing to pay to get those views. So the people at the bottom, it'll be almost as though they're not promoting at all, because their item's still not going to get seen. So even in the product categories where they're already up to like 70+% promoted listings, there are still people that are going to get seen and people that are trying to promote, but they're at such a low rate that it rarely, if ever, gets seen. So I don't 100% buy the argument that if everybody promotes, nobody's promoting, because you still have that range. But the upshot of it is, of course, that ultimately the more people that promote, either the higher you've got to promote, put your rate in to get those sales. And that then leads to, of course, less profit for you and more profit for eBay, which is not the cycle we want to be in. So it is definitely a tough thing to balance. I don't have the answer. As I said in that video the other day, I've not decided yet what I will do. I guess I would probably experiment with lowering the rate a percentage point and just seeing what happens if it has a negative impact. Like I've said, doing promotions has increased my business on eBay by about 30%. I don't know that I want to give that up by lowering the percentage, but at the same time, if I'm going to have an extra 20% maybe of my inventory, of my sales, be attributed to a promoted listing, even if it wasn't clicked by the buyer, that's a pretty good chunk of business of extra fees that you'd be paying that, as I said in that video, I don't think are right. Chuck Witt, do you ever get an estate buyout that's a distance from you and not have enough room in your vehicle for it all? Oh, all the time. All the time. The last big purchase that I did ended up being, I don't know, 1,700 odd books. I did 4 trips to Dayton, it's a 35-minute drive. So it's not a huge drive, but it took me 4 trips to get all of that stuff collected and hauled out of there. So yes, I don't know what the answer is. Even if I had a bigger, like a Ford, like the old Econoline van, it probably would have taken me 2 trips. So short of getting a U-Haul, some of these bigger ones are multiple trips anyway. So, but yes, all the time. The one that I'm going to today, the warehouse deal, from the pictures, even if I decide to buy everything there, it's going to be a one-tripper. There's several hundred books, but there's not thousands. The other one, the private seller that reached out to me, that would be based on those photos. That's probably going to be half a dozen or more trips. So thank God for the mileage write-off. Yeah. Big Dre, actually bidding on personal items. Don't source on eBay. One of those thrill of the hunt resellers. I need to be out and about sourcing in the wild. My wife is the one that will source online. Yeah, I I do miss that kind of the thrill of going to an estate sale and not knowing exactly what's going to be there and trying to strike gold. Now that so much stuff is like coming to me, it's I've kind of lost that part of it, which is one of the super fun things. But now it's replaced by I've just got random tubs of stuff, and I don't really know, like the one we just did. This is in a box. I didn't know. I didn't look at this as I was sourcing. I just was grabbing stuff and throwing it in tubs and boxes. You bring the box here, you pull it out, and all of a sudden, hey, this is a $15 item that I own for 38 cents. That's a pretty good deal. I'll do that. So Denticor says 19 of 20 sales are promoted for now. Oh, that's a bunch. Yeah, I'm still at like 6 out of 10. That is a huge number. I'm at the point when I list it's only required items and maybe recommended 1 or 2. If you promote at a high rate, the item specifics don't matter. My only thing with the item specifics is, in addition to helping with the search, it can help potentially protect you if you've got somebody that's trying to pull a fast one on you and say that item's not as described. You've got everything in there. And I totally get why, if you're promoting at a high enough rate and they're turning and burning, you don't want to spend the time. But it gives me, I mean, let's be real, eBay is probably not going to side with you anyway, but at least it gives me some extra ammunition where I can say, hey, it's right here in the item specifics that it was this or that. So I still tend to want to use them for that reason. But yeah, no, if you're promoting at a high enough rate that you're already 19 out of 20, you're getting seen, obviously, in the search. And that is a huge, like when I get like 7 or 8 out of 10 on a given day, I go white. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of extra fees, but 19 out of 20. Whew. Ms. Lachey says, if I had a large store and was promoting at a set rate across the board, I would ease into lowering my rate now with new listings to test the water. Yeah. Yeah, there's certainly, again, we have no real idea if this is going to come to the US. I can't imagine that it won't. If I was going to bet, I would say it'll be probably in advance of Q4, because why wouldn't you try to capitalize how much money you can earn in fees in the biggest selling time of the year? So, but experimenting now to see, if I lower my rate on everything today at 6% from 7, speaking of my situation personally, what does that do? What does it look like? I talked about previously, like I raised it from 7 to 8 and I didn't see a lift. So I went back to 7. I'm actually at 7.1 right now to just try to tweak out that last little bit from other folks that are at 7. But I didn't notice an advantage to me going to 8. Now, maybe if I'd gone to 9 or 10 or 12, I might have seen a little bit additional lift. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm kind of at that equilibrium point where I'm reasonably pleased with the activity that I'm getting. So I'm not wanting to pay any more than I have to get those things seen. But yeah, this is a great opportunity right now before all this stuff hits to run some tests, run some experiments, see what you get, what kind of activity, how it impacts your sales. Big Gray says, I think a way to avoid promoted fees is to sell gun-related items, because I wasn't charged a promoted fee when I sold a pistol holster that sold within a day, and I used dynamic, no cap. I wonder if that category is not eligible or if it just hasn't been caught yet. Because I think I talked about last week, I had one that they say it can take, I think, up to 4 days for a promoted listing attribution to hit. And I've had a couple of instances where 2, 3, 4 days later, as I'm going through my fee screen, I'll see here's a promoted listing charge for something that was shipped days ago, which is aggravating. Hollywood Reseller asks, any categories or niches that you're giving up on? No, but that's simply because I've already kind of found my happy place with the niches I'm in. Mostly books. I would still, like I said, consider CDs. I've done some other stuff. I was buying record albums for a while. I probably am not going to do that anymore, just because they're kind of a hassle to work with. Grading is pretty subjective and can be pretty difficult. So, but other than that, the only real change that I've made is the one I talked about in the live a couple of weeks ago, where I've put myself on hiatus over on Whatnot as a platform to try to sort out whether or how I can make that work better for me, because it was essentially a time suck and a money loser the way I was doing it. Not to say that Whatnot is not a good platform, but the the method that I was doing was not working. So that's probably the only real big change. I've not um, I've not got any niches that I probably would not continue to do that I'm not already doing. And I'm still open to like random stuff. Like we haven't had one on this show for a while, but I buy old railroad memorabilia, baseball hats. If I find a nice collection of hats, I'll buy those up. They're typically sub $20, so you don't see a lot of them in the What Sold recaps, but those are areas that I continue to buy in if I'm out and about. But then Decor says, with Top Rated Seller Plus, 30 days free returns anyway. Get very few INAD returns. eBay is an advertising company. I have so much inventory and it needs to go. Got to pay to play, and it's quite unsavory. It is, especially if you've been selling on eBay for a long time. I've said previously, it's galling to have to pay an extra fee to get eBay to do the thing that they're actually here to do, which is to put our items in front of prospective buyers. Um, but it is what it is. It's the sandbox that they've created. It's the way that they have chosen. We talk about it all the time, to try to make more money. They're trying to increase their profits through additional fee generation, be it through promoted listings or offsite ads or whatever the case may be, rather than growing the core business, the buyers and the sellers on the site. And it is super frustrating. But in order to be successful, unfortunately, we have to at least consider playing that game. We're coming up on 55 minutes here, so we're going to wrap this up. I do need to wrap this up as close to noon as possible because I've got to get in the vehicle and get on my way to this warehouse. So Big Dre says the pistol sold her May 12th or 11th. Haven't received a fee yet, but the buyer did receive a retail fee. Interesting. I did have somebody ask about that also. A couple of weeks ago, I got a message about a online sale fee that was showing up on their detail screen separate from sales tax. And we talked about it several months ago. There are several states, I believe Colorado and Minnesota are two, that they have an extra fee in addition to sales tax for people who are purchasing things online. eBay historically had not broken that out. It was just lumped in with sales tax, but they are now, in at least most cases, breaking that out as a separate fee. So that is something that buyers in those states are paying. So again, it just makes it that much harder for us as sellers. There's just more and more fees at every turn. Miss Lachey, I bought 12 or 15 LPs on Monday for 25 cents. Few classical with good return. Google Lens was helpful in identifying them as I had zero clue on the classic stuff. There you go. Just be, as I said, just be very conservative with the grading. Record buyers in particular, my personal experience and having owned a record store for over a dozen years and worked in the industry for a long time, record buyers can be really finicky about grading. So if there are surface marks or any kind of discoloration or scuffs or whatever, you're going to want to disclose that and grade it accordingly, because they're probably the hardest folks to deal with about condition. So that's for what it's worth, that's my pro tip of the day on records. Can't wait to see the new stuff. Yes, I'm very interested to see what they have at this warehouse. The person that sent me all the pictures of their personal collection, I can tell already it's another one of those kind of mixed bags. There are a bunch of kind of fairly common like 60s and 70s era novels. Like I could spy some Leon Uris stuff, and that's the market saturated with. But I could also tell, even from the slightly blurry pictures trying to blow them up, there's some vintage and some antique books in that collection as well. So it'd be really interesting to see kind of what's there and whether we can come to some kind of accommodation. They have not said kind of what they want for those books. I've got kind of my numbers in mind, so we'll see. But the other one, I know I'm getting today a minimum of probably 100 or 120 books for $50. So they'll be 50 cents a piece or less. And then she said there are a couple of more shelves that she didn't send me photos of that I'm welcome to look at as well. So I know what I'm getting there, and I'm reasonably pleased with that one. And like I said, I've still got more than I know what to do with already in the garage. We've got just a couple of minutes left. If you have anything else that you would like to talk about today, let us know in the chat. As always, thank you guys for coming out and participating, answering each other's questions. Talked about it the other day, how much I appreciate the community, helping each other out and coming out here on a weekly basis, and all the support for not just the channel, but for each other. It really makes this all worth doing. Let's do one more listing. How about it? While we're sitting here waiting for this last batch of chats before I hit the road. I still haven't even figured out how I'm going to do lunch today. I guess I'm eating on the road. Let's see. I love these old textbooks. Oops. Let's see if that brings anything up. So this is a nothing burger. So this is an old textbook, Engineering Dynamics, Volume 2, second edition, in pretty mediocre condition. And there are a bunch of these for $6, $7, $8. This book is going to be in the 4-pound shipping rate, so it's going to be $7 to ship. It just isn't going to make sense, so we will not be listing that, and we're going to call it a day here. Let's get into the chat one last time. Hardee's, baby. Yeah, I love me some Hardee's. I try not to eat a lot of fast food. I don't know if I've talked about back in January, I made some changes to my kind of health and fitness thing. I cut way back on eating out. I completely eliminated fast food. I got back on the bike. I ordered a ride on Zwift. I ordered the Zwift ride and been riding there. I bought another gravel bike to get outside and ride. And on Memorial Day, I did I don't know what it was, 18-mile ride probably, that put me over 2,000 miles of cycling so far this year. And I've lost 22 pounds since Christmas. So I could probably splurge and have some Hardee's, but it has, again, been kind of a almost life-changing thing. I was to a point where I was not being able to fit into some of my clothes, and I wasn't what you would call significantly overweight, but I was over my weight where I wanted to be. So I made some changes, fast food and eating out all the time, cutting that back and getting on the bike. Has really had a huge impact on how I feel, which has led to other positive outcomes as well. So it's been awesome. Media picker, have fun with the book buy. Yeah, I love these people. They're super good to me about calling with stuff. So it'd be good to see them. And I'm really excited about looking at this other big potential buy. Last thing, Fern, good morning. Just joining in. Looks like I missed the most. Yeah, unfortunately, we started at 11. You catch it on Team Replay. There are some pretty good topics that were discussed throughout today's show, so feel free to go back and take a look. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments down below. As always, again, thank you so much for coming out. And now, there's one more here. Let's get in here and do it. Big Dre says, same here. Started going to the gym in January, was 258 pounds, currently 246. We'll be adding kimchi to my diet soon. There you go. Yeah, it was what we're way off on a tangent talking about weight loss here, but um, it took probably 2.5 months. The the first couple of months, I only lost 3 pounds, maybe 4 pounds, and then all of a sudden, it just really took off. It was like it took a while for my body to adjust to the new regimen that I was putting myself through. But I was really starting to get a little frustrated after 2 months of work. I had literally lost 4 pounds. I was like, I'm like riding my bike constantly and it's just not working. And then all of a sudden, it was like every couple of days, it's a pound, 2 pounds. And within another 6 weeks, I was kind of into my target weight range. So, curious what your experience has been with that. Is it happening at the rate you expected, or are you having to kind of grind it out, waiting for the the results to actually show? But congratulations, good on you. I talk about all the time how physical health and activity contributes to your mental health. I am actually going to be doing an episode on that coming up here, maybe not this week, maybe next week, about dealing with the stress of being a reseller and kind of some things to help mitigate that. And one of them is physical fitness and activity. Staying active has a huge impact, at least for me. I've talked about it before when I had to take those little hiatus from YouTube in January. Part of it has been because I haven't been able to get outside and be on my bike. It's one of the reasons I made the investment in the indoor cycling equipment so that I could still do that exercise. Um, it makes such a difference, at least again for me. Then of course as muscle mass, then the fat fell off. Been there, need to get back to it. Yep, it's so easy to fall off. You take a couple of days off and you just don't want to get back on. It is work. Considering I missed a month due to illness, pleased with the results. That's all we can ask for. Sorry about the illness, but hopefully you're on the mend and recovered. And now, I really mean it this time. It's time to sell. Thanks, guys.